Hello, today is the birthday of Moshe Safdie. He was born on the 14th of July. Let us not forget also today is the National Day of France, but also the birthday of the greatest, in my opinion, film director, the great Ingmar Bergman from Sweden. What a film director, Ingmar Bergman. Happy birthday, sir. I think he was born in 1918, so he would have been 105 years old today. Ingmar Bergman. But let's talk about Moshe Safdie. So you will see, he was born on July 14th, 1938, so he was 20 years younger than Ingmar Bergman. He is an architect, so he is today 85 years old, no? Yeah, 62 plus 23, yes. 85 years old, he's an architect, urban planner, educator, theorist, and author who claims Israeli, Canadian, and American citizenship. Wow, 3 citizenships. Over a 50-year career, Safdie has explored the essential principles of socially responsible design through a comprehensive and humane design philosophy. Safdie is an important architect of the second half of the 20th and early 21st century because of his multiculturalism, commitment to geographic, social, and cultural elements that define a place, and constant search for typological and technological innovation. Some of these projects include cultural, educational, and civic institutions, neighborhoods and public parks, housing, mixed-use urban centers, airports, and master plans for both existing communities and entirely new cities. Moshe Safdie has had projects in North and South America, the Middle East, and throughout Asia. He is most identified with designing Marina Bay Sands and Jewel Changi Airport, as well as his debut project, Habitat 67, originally conceived as his thesis at McGill University in Montreal. This led to his international career. Safdie is considered a thought leader, and his exemplary projects have inspired generations of architects and architecture. I took this text from that perennial source of information, Wikipedia. Here he is as a young man, Moshe Safdie, perhaps in the architecture school. And here he is later, still as a young man, building the famous Habitat 67 for the Expo in World Expo in Montreal. Moshe Safdie, maybe with his daughter. There was an idealism. So we are talking about 1967, you know, close to 1968. At that time, people believed in a better world. They believed in making love, not war. They believed in, you know, demolishing banks. They believed in non-conformism. They believed in the hippie movement. And they believed in an architecture of optimism with social concerns. Here he is in, you know, closer to our time, still active, an impressive mustache. Drawings by Moshe Safdie. Here it is, the Habitat 67 in Montreal. I don't know what this is, but shows that he was able and is able to make, you know, emotional, gestural, almost expressionistic drawings. Since I mentioned Ingmar Bergman, I would like to quote again something that he said: in the field of emotions, we are all illiterates. Not all drawings are impressive. Like this one is very descriptive, but maybe a little bit too descriptive. while this one is rather temperamental. And he built this building, and we are going to see it. Moshe Safdie. As you can see, his drawings are they do not have a certain consistency. Between this drawing and this drawing, there is a certain distance, graphically speaking, or between this and this. You could almost say that they were done by different people. He built this building, Palm of Buddha. Now, we start with his very famous work, Habitat 67 at Expo 67, the World's Fair in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Well, we talked about unking, no? And the randomness of order. Well, in a way, here we are dealing with the same thing, you know, the randomness of order. We have order and disorder. We have the aleatory movement, and then we have also the rigors derived from geometry. I would say that this work was infused with the idealism of the 60s, late 60s. Now, these days, there are many attempts to bring housing complexes closer to what a hill is, or a mound is, or even a mountain is. But as we can see, this was already done by Moshe Safdie in 1967. If something is not very convincing, is the fact that all these buildings end at the same height, and that they are flat at the top. Here, maybe a culmination a little bit more organic would have been better, perhaps, or at least to have some kind of asymmetry. Instead, all three are cut there. Who knows? Maybe they ran out of funds or something. But it's still a remarkable housing housing complex, and should be understood and applauded as such. Because there is variety in unity, multiplicity in unity, and we need both. A little flat at the top, but otherwise is I think, very successful. Habitat 67, Moshe Safdie, Montreal. Prefabricated units that are brought into place. Here he is, the young man contemplating the model. Quite a success. He was 25 years old when this work was commissioned to him. Not bad at all. So there is modular thinking, but when you look at the building as it was built, the modules, negotiate between each other, and the general feeling is of, as I said, variety in unity, multiplicity in unity. There is unity, meaning order, but there is also variety, meaning randomness. But the important things are here, beyond the units themselves, are the interstitial spaces and the relationship between the units. So, there is an element, a ludic element here, playing with the cubes, playing, almost like in a Lego, um, manipulation of cubes and so on. You play with them, and the playfulness is still apparent at the end. Although there is structure, and there is reasoning, and there is premeditation, there is also the ludic aspect. Homo ludens is present here. And Montreal built it, which shows again it pays to take risks. And this stair appears to be a little bit abrupt, referring to its angle, but maybe a little bit of an effort. It's not too bad. You might not have to go to the health club if you live in such an apartment, which is quite luminous and engaging. Or maybe not. Here the angle of the stair doesn't appear to be like here, so who knows, maybe it's the photograph that might have created this feeling. Very, very spacious, these apartments. Now, Le Musée de la Civilisation in Quebec City, Quebec, Canada, 1987, the Museum of Civilization. Moshe Safdie. Now we could wonder, what did he make, or what did he do between 1967 and 1987? That's 20 years. I think he had a period when he didn't build so much, but now he's again very, very busy, very, very active, being going towards being 90 years old. This is not a bad building, this Museum of Civilization, as it is called. It's a real picture here almost. At first, difficult to comprehend, and then you discover what it is about. Because of this roofing, which is, rather unusual or surprising, although the rigors of geometry are here for all to see. The National Gallery of Canada, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, 1988. And national it is through its dimensions. Lots of glass, lots of heating in the summer, and lots of lots of cooling in the summer, and lots of heating in the winter. But the demagogy of glass was and is a phenomenon we have to fight with. You could almost say that architecture is about the coiffure, the hairstyle, what happens at the top. The roof, or indeed, architecture seems to gain impetus and to open up its wings towards the top. If we are to think about Chambord, but not only Chambord, even here, you see that architecture becomes more architectural or hyper in a way towards the top, towards where the ceiling is, towards the roofing. And this happened also, of course, in all the Gothic cathedrals and all the cathedrals and the churches of the world, the ascension towards the above. Here there are no religious connotations, but still we see the octagon and the assemblage of octagons. And the play and the play of light and shadow. And the sculpture by Louis Bourgeois, a famous spider, which was also present in front of the Guggenheim in Bilbao and many other places. I think we need a spider badly. And we also need weaving. Ariadne was transformed into a spider by a jealous and envious Athena. And the spider is a symbol of eternal weaving, no? Weaving its own web. but in the sculpture by Louis Bourgeois, there are probably echoes of a rather ominous nature, at least a little bit. And then Caravaggio there in the back, announcing his triumphant exhibition. And then Monet. And then the polyhedral glass. Again, even here, I think that is a little bit problematic. We remember the Habitat 67 in Montreal, there was a problem at the top with, being flat at the top. Well, I would say that here too, Moshe Safdie sometimes seems to have a problem here, I feel. The ending is a little bit, I feel, problematic. Glass, glass, and glass again. And then the electricity bill, of course. The new city of Modi'in in Israel, 1989. Well, it does seem to be a city, a city within a city, rather large, white buildings, I guess social concerns, much less interesting architecturally than Habitat 67 in Montreal. As if something happened to him. I don't know, or was it just a question of the funds he had at his disposal? I don't know. Esplanade Condominiums, Cambridge, Massachusetts, US, 1989. Also, this is not very convincing. I'm sorry, I mean, 1989, but in 1967, he did a much more courageous and uplifting work. And here we see a stiff work, a predictable work. Yes, he made those terraces, but it's still, I would say it's a banal work. Postmodernism was deadly for many architects, and it was deadly for Moshe Safdie as well. Now he's doing much better. I'm glad for him that he came back, so to speak. Although there are some people who claim that postmodernism is having a return now because people got tired of the dogmatic orthodox modernism. I don't know. From this view, I guess, but even here, there are two sides. You have this side, architecturally speaking, and then you have this side, which is almost, importantly different from what is here. Like two different kinds of architecture somehow. The Montreal Museum of Fine Arts in Montreal, 1991. Here it is. Let's read again. Fine arts, not modern arts. Okay, fine arts. It's symmetrical, isn't it? Who said that modernism is supposed to be adversarial towards symmetry? But here we see a perfectly symmetrical facade. The only asymmetry is because of the banners, not because of the building. And I will say this sloping plane of glass is a déjà vu. Many people used it. And again, inside you melt in the summer, even in Montreal, which doesn't have the warmest climate in the world, and you freeze in the winter. So this kind of glass, large surface sloping, is rather unconvincing. There was a period long in his life, professional life, when I think he seemed to be rather lost at that time. He didn't do remarkable works. This one also is, it doesn't have exuberance. And in the opinion of Frank Lloyd Wright, it doesn't have creativity. Because for Frank Lloyd Wright, creativity equals exuberance. Oh, inside maybe some interesting pictures can be taken. The class of 1959 chapel, Harvard Business School, Boston, Massachusetts, US, 1992. This is the drawing. The class of 59 chapel. Interesting naming, and here is the building. Again, in my opinion, not very impressive. Because I think he still was the prisoner of this, the convenience of, glass, and it's an architecture predictability, actually. Glass, but maybe some echoes from Mario Botta to an extent, maybe a little bit. The materials are different. Even here, I think there are some echoes from Mario Botta. Ottawa City Hall, Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, 1994. Well, this picture is enticing because of its asymmetry. It even made me, for a second, think a little bit about the pavilion in Brussels by Le Corbusier and Yanis Xenakis, which was destroyed, but not here. Here we have a stiff architecture and with a tired modernism, if you ask me. Very, very stiff, very, very predictable. And this picture is interesting because the asymmetrical, the triangles are engaging, but here we see something else. And so we do here. Here there are some echoes from Dhaka in Bangladesh, Louis Kahn, since we mentioned him today, but without the archaic power, the Ur architecture of Louis Kahn. This is a rather sad echo coming from Louis Kahn in Dhaka. Very sad. I think he was lost at that time, Moshe Safdie, with all due respect. But strangely now, in his 80s, he's back to life. There are some interesting things here, like this picture in the interior. It's true. Not everything is bad, no. But you wonder, is this a chapel or a room in a palace of justice? Where you expect the Grand Inquisitor to, judge someone severely. Rosovsky Hall at Harvard University, Cambridge, 1994. I don't know. I mean, postmodernists died, but it seems not totally for Moshe Safdie. Very interesting. This architect became younger after he was 80. Before, at this time, he was rather stiff. I think postmodernists had a deadly effect on him. And of course, not only on him. If you see what Kengo Kuma did around that time when he built that horrible, I don't know, Mazda showroom or Toshiba, no, I think it was Mazda showroom, a work which would have qualified any administrative office of the Order of Architects worldwide to remove his right to build, at least for some years. I'm talking about Kengo Kuma. This work by Moshe Safdie also is very static. Now, surprise, surprise. So from 1994 to 2010, 16 years passed. And look at this one, Marina Bay Sands Integrated Resort, Singapore. You know, the towers are as they are, but look what's happening at the top. Can you believe it? It's a high-speed train, you know, superimposed on those three towers. It's a casino, it's a resort, it's a place of, you know, illusions and delusions that you can get rich instantaneously if you only play the lucky card, which very rarely happens, if at all, as Alexander Pushkin quite well knew. I recommend to anyone, I suggest to anyone to read The Queen of Spades by Alexander Pushkin, an unbelievable short story by the greatest literary man in Russia, as Dostoevsky thought Pushkin was. But this bonanza architecture in Singapore by Moshe Safdie, to be honest with you, both depresses me and leaves me cold. I mean, we know that Singapore is the Switzerland of Southeast Asia, so they have all the money in the world. But what is this thing on the top of the towers? You know, it's what does it want to say? That anything is possible, that anything is acceptable, as long as the true king, meaning money, lives. And what is this here? You know, joie de vivre, but to live without meaning, you know, just to fool around with plenty of money in the pocket and rent a depressing, luxurious room in one of those hotels underneath the high-speed train at the top. And of course, electricity, electricity, and electricity again in the blackness of night. Talking about sustainability, right? Well, nothing can be as sustainable as a luxurious casino, right? Of course, I'm sarcastic, and you cannot be otherwise. Rather sad, Mr. Safdie, in my opinion. United States Institute of Peace headquarters, Washington, D.C. Now, do we really need an Institute of Peace? It sounds contrived, no? An Institute of Peace. That is an institution that institutes peace. The Institute of Peace is like the bureaucratization of peace. Wow. I prefer the market that MVRDV built in Rotterdam than this. It's not a building that inspires me. I miss Habitat 67. This is clearly an official building, you know, funded by the US government and, you know, the Institute of Peace. I don't see peace here, actually. I see stagnation, but stagnation is not peace. It's actually death. Peace is not death. The Sky Habitat in Singapore, 2012. Well, he tried a few things, and it's true that he brought back some constructivist exuberance for the rich, for the very rich. You can imagine the cost of an apartment here. This is also now in Singapore, of course. It almost says yes to democracy as long as democracy belongs to the rich. I will be honest with you. I wouldn't live here. I wouldn't. It doesn't matter how comfortable and cozy. No, no, no. Scarborough Cultural Center, Los Angeles, 2013. So it's a cultural center in the age of no culture. The more cultural centers we have, less culture we have. This is my opinion, if you allow me a certain bitterness. We had, of course, also in Los Angeles, the Getty Center by Richard Meyer, you know, everything for culture in the age of no culture. When the culture and the consuming of culture becomes too sweet, I think culture disappears. Well, where is the culture here? This could have been a resort, no? Culture as a resort. Culture is the opposite of a resort. Alter, Colombo, Sri Lanka, 2021, 2 years ago. Yes, it is in a way impressive, no? But who lives here? To me, it's a dubious optimism here. It's a mega project in the age of many problems. Now look at the surroundings. Look at the buildings surrounding this so-called spectacular slanted towers or slanted tower. As I said, for me, they have a suspect optimism, these towers. And they are certainly not for everybody. They are not for proletarians. These towers are not for proletarians. They can't be. Do you see any open window here? Of course not. The air conditioning is pumping, pumping, pumping air in these units. A proletarian wouldn't have money even to pay the electrical bill, forget about purchasing the apartment. That's it. So let's wish happy birthday to Moshe Safdie on this day of the 14th of July, 2023. Thank you.